my gosh, can I just say, just to start out, dadgum, it's hard to make resolutions and keep them. Anybody else? Anybody? Is this where I'm supposed to say Bueller? Bueller? Okay, here we go. Resolutions for the new year. How do you make them? How do you keep them? What do you do with them? All the things. I am not a person that has consistently in my entire life of a bunch of years made New Year's resolutions. They didn't actually make sense to me. That was not something I felt like was attainable, achievable, fill in the blank with the word you like there, simply because I always watched and saw, yep, I'm a watcher. I would see people make New Year's resolutions and go all out and it be a deal and it was a thing and yay, and by mid-February they didn't even remember what their New Year's resolutions were. And that's totally okay. And we're starting out the year as normal, which is totally okay because I completely forgot to turn on the microphone. So we're just going to keep going because that's just how it's going to happen. So New Year's resolutions, as I said, were not and are not something that I have made, thought about, messed with. I think I've done it a couple of times in my entire life. Didn't work. Didn't like it. Just set me up for a massive amount of guilt and feeling like a failure. And I don't want to feel like a failure any more than anybody else does. And why would I set myself up for that? So all of this time I have basically just ignored everything with New Year's resolutions. And honestly, I'm probably even beyond that, because not only do I ignore New Year's resolutions, I don't even look at January 1st as the beginning of the year, because I feel like as we go from December, January, February, March, we're in this time of slowing down, hibernating kind of, being quiet, and maybe being reflective instead of jumping in and saying, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to exercise and join the gym and I'm going to walk every day and I'm going to start a new routine and I'm going to lose weight and I'm going to try a new diet and all of these things. I don't feel like January, February, March is a really good time to start anything, simply because the environment, nature, and no, like I'm not crazy nature freak. Well, I mean, I kind of am, but not like this. So what I'm saying is, if we follow the seasons, which you can, you don't have to, doesn't matter. It just seems that I work better when I follow a seasonal idea instead of a calendar idea. So I kind of step back and am reflective and think about things and move a little slower and don't plan to try and take on the world and conquer the world and all that sort of thing. And then when the weather starts warming up and we start seeing grass and we start seeing birds come back and life coming back in the spring, that's when my motivation is, oh, I want to start exercising. Oh, I want to change this. I want to change that. But, that doesn't necessarily have a whole lot to do with New Year's resolutions, other than the fact I'm not trying to set resolutions and change my life and do all of these wild, explosive, amazing, life-changing things January 1st. Something I do enjoy doing during January, February, March is maybe moving things around. Well, you can't move a whole lot around in a tiny house, which is what I live in, but changing the studio up, moving things around a little bit, or changing colors and new pillows and whatever in my environment, in the area that I live in. And then to some degree and a little bit, I like a little bit of travel during January, February, March. The weather is not always, helping me with that. But if we've got decent weather, I like to go find a new place to visit, another small town or maybe a larger town, or go have an experience that I might not have. And I do that. I like doing those things in January, February, March because typically that's not when we're in tourist season. We're not in travel season unless you're in, the coast, Florida or Mississippi or someplace like that, whenever all the snowbirds are going down. So I avoid those places. But finding something new and someplace different to go and doing the things that you might do inside, like finding a museum, finding a new store, finding a library, finding a boutique, things that you can do inside are great for January, February, March. And again, nothing to do with resolutions. I'm just kind of throwing this out there.
Okay, so let's talk about resolutions because that's actually what this video is supposed to be about. And I think I kind of got off topic, but oh well. New Year's resolutions. That word resolution, we all know it means resolve. You are resolved to do something. And resolve takes a tremendous amount of discipline and a tremendous amount of considering what it is you want to do and then follow through. And I don't think within many of us that type of resolve, which is great, is actually going to be long term. Now, granted, yes, there are those amazing people in the world that when they say they're going to do something, they do it. End of story. It's done. It's over. Here we go. But I don't think the majority of the world has that level of resolve. I think you can develop it, but I don't think it's just, oh, yes, I resolved to do this and that's my resolution and it's done and I'm doing it. And part of the reason I'm saying this is to have that kind of resolve and that kind of, stick to it type thing. You write your resolutions down, you review them daily, you keep them in front of you, you count the cost and the cause and effect of having the resolution and what you want the outcome to be. And most of the time, resolutions, from what I've seen, as I said, I've not done this, work the best when you have short-term and long-term goals. This is really, really basic stuff. And that's, it's really basic stuff. That's what we're talking about, which is great. So let's just step back for a minute, because if you decide I'm losing 10 pounds and I'm going to lose 10 pounds and you calculate if you lose a pound a week, which is about average, it'll take you 10 weeks to lose 10 pounds. Okay, great, fine, wonderful. But can you count and understand that during that 10 weeks, you're going to have emotional highs and emotional lows? You're going to have unexpected situations. You're going to have people invite you to dinner. You're going to have parties. You're going to have things come up that you don't expect. How do you keep your resolve when the emotion comes in and emotion trumps logic every single time? I'm not even kidding you. It is a scientific fact. Emotion throws logic right out the window. Typically, New Year's resolutions are made in the logical process of the brain. We see something, we think it, we decide to do it. We see something, we think it, we decide to do it, and then it doesn't happen. And then we blame ourselves, and then we feel guilty, and then we don't understand why we just cannot accomplish anything that we put our mind to. And the problem is, we're not putting our mind to it, we're putting our brain to it. This is where it gets all kinds of fun and interesting, because if instead of putting your mind, or in this case your brain, to something, what if you decide to put your mind to it? And this is where we talk about the scripture, Proverbs 23:7. Let me pull it up here on my computer, because it says in the New King James Version, Proverbs 23:7, for as he thinks in his heart, so is he. Now, the rest of the verse, that's the first sentence. The rest of the verse is, eat and drink, he says to you, but his heart is not with you. This he that they're talking about is someone that has invited you to dinner. So the basic idea of this verse, and I'm going to kind of break it into two pieces here, is you get invited to dinner and the person that invites you is, quote unquote, a friend. Come to dinner, enjoy dinner, I can't wait to see you, blah, blah, blah. And then you get there and you are enjoying dinner, but what you don't realize is his heart was not in it to invite you to dinner. It was either obligatory or some other undercurrent reason. And all he's thinking in the process is, you're eating too much. I wish you weren't here. This isn't working. All of these negative, funky things. Okay. So when it says, for he, as he thinks in his heart, so is he. This is the part that I really, really, really like, kind of in a backwards way. Because if you flip that and you say, as I think in my heart, so am I. Because you can do the same thing. I can do the same thing. I can invite myself to a fabulous experience and be all excited about it, and at the same time sabotage myself. We're talking about self-sabotage here. And that's what happens with resolutions. New Year's resolutions, you self-sabotage for whatever reason. Either you're not, your negative thinking is taking over, or you think you don't deserve whatever it is you're wanting to do, or that you're not capable of doing it. And all of a sudden, you've written these things down and you're ready to attack them. And then there's a problem because you wrote them down and you're looking at them, but your heart is not with you. Now, I want to trade the word heart just for a minute and use the word mind. Okay, this is a little switcheroo here. And I'm not just like going off in my own world saying, let's do a different word for this and let's do a switcheroo. This is actually part of this word and the translation for it, and the word is L-E-B, and I think the pronunciation is actually Leib, but it's not really telling me in Classic Net Bible the absolute pronunciation. Is just giving me the different spelling. But anyway, the point is, this word means and can mean inner man, mind, will, heart, and understanding. So I want to switch this word from heart and I want to switch it to mind, because it is your mind where your thoughts originate. And we don't talk about this. We talk about you think, and you think with your brain. Well, science is proving to us that you don't think with your brain. And I'm not all science. I am, wow, we're beginning to understand the amazing creation that we are, and how God created us to live and move and worship and grow. And this is part of it. And science, good science, hard science that takes the look at these things clearly, is saying our thoughts come from our mind. The mind is what tells the brain, this is what I'm thinking. Now I want all of these chemicals and all of these hormones and all of these things to work and make this happen. So when you look at this verse, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. As a man thinks in his mind, because our mind, as I said, is where we think. So if we're trying to make New Year's resolutions, we're doing that by thinking, and those thoughts are coming from the mind into the brain. And if we go back to the mind, we go, how do we actually make New Year's resolutions that stick when our thoughts come from our mind and the mind is not necessarily logical, but we're trying to tell the brain to be logical? It's not going to work. Okay, let's put this together. New King James Version says, for as he thinks in his heart, so is he. Let's flip that around. For as I think in my mind, so am I. So if my mind, which is thoughts, originate there, emotions grow there, all of these things are there. And if my mind is sabotaging me and setting me up for failure, then I don't need to make New Year's resolutions. I need to change the way my mind thinks. I need to change the filter that I see everything through from my inner person and look at what God says about me instead of what I think I should be doing. So instead of jumping into New Year's resolutions, maybe what we need to be jumping into is changing the way we think, changing our mind, changing the thoughts that we have and the thoughts that we entertain. And I always go back to the scripture that says, take every thought captive, submitting it to the will of God. This is so true. It's the thoughts that you work from. It's the mind that puts the thoughts that puts you in the position to do the things that either you want to do or you don't do. Paul says, the things I want to do, I don't do, and the things I don't want to do, I do. That's Paul. For heaven's sakes, that's Paul. Mr. Hello, big guy on campus, This is Paul we're talking about. And if Paul can go through this, obviously, I am definitely going to be struggling. So the idea is, instead of New Year's resolutions that I'm going to, and I'm going to lose weight, and I'm going to start a new job, and I'm going to write a book, and I'm going to have a podcast, and I'm going to be a better mom, or I'm going to be a better wife, all of those things start in the mind, not in the resolve. And, the mind is so busy telling us, I'm afraid of this and I'm afraid of that. And what if this happens? And what if that happens? And somebody's not going to like me and I'm not going to have this and I'm not going to have that. We're so busy living from the mindset of fear and lack and sadness and depression and negativity. It doesn't matter how many New Year's resolutions we make if we cannot align our thoughts and our mind with who God created us to be and who God says we are. We can make all the New Year's resolutions we want to make from now until the time we are, dropped into the ground, which sounds really horrid, sorry. But resolutions are not going to change anything. If anything, they're going to set us up for failure. At least that's been my experience. I can't speak for you, but that's been my experience. And what happens when you make the resolution and you keep it? And then what happens 9 months later when the resolution that you kept is actually not even on the radar and you fall right back into the same pattern? Because we fall back into patterns that we live in because of our mind, because of how we think, because of what filter we see the world through. So here's the dealio. How about, instead of making 5 or 6 New Year's resolutions, you just pick one thing and say, okay, Lord, give it to me. What is the one thing, this thing in my brain, this mind that I have that you've given me? What do I need to change in my mind? How do I change my mindset? And what is it that I need to change? Not to be better, not to be great, not to, conquer the world, but to know who you made me to be and to have a better and fulfilling relationship with you. Because when it comes down to it, it's all about the relationship with God. Resolutions, all of it, it's all about the relationship with God. And if we're approaching 2024 looking at how and what relationship do I have with God right now, and asking Him, okay, if this is the relationship that I have with you, is it the one you want, or is there more? Is there more to this relationship than I know? And if there is, toss my mindset into, the mixer, mix it up, and let me see what I need to do, what I need to think, and how I need to approach life from your mindset, not mine.